Welcome, everybody. This is Real Talk with Ryan. It is September 23rd, Wednesday, and we are blessed and excited to have Miguel de Jesus on as our special guest from Cal State San Marcos. And I don't even want to try, Miguel, to list out all your things that you do and your titles. So I'll let you announce all the different things you're doing at Cal State San Marcos. As an alumni of Cal State San Marcos, I'm excited to have you on and hear about the exciting things both that the university's doing, that you're doing, but also get a little bit about your story and how you got here and how you got working with the students and working in the cause you're at. You and I've met before, and your passion for the students and the community is exciting, and I'm excited for our guests on the program today, but also those that will hear it later to hear that. So Miguel, thank you for being here. We're excited to have you. And so why don't you introduce yourself about the university, what you do there, and how the kind of programs that you're running. We'll take it from there.
Very good. Thank you, Ryan. So thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to see some people that I know and the people that I'm going to know even better moving forward. So I have been associated with Cal State University San Marcos since about May 2018. I had attended an event downtown San Diego, and the name of a person was used, and I said, I know the name. I wonder if it's the same person. And so I looked up the person on LinkedIn, and son of a gun, it happened to be the same person that I had worked with 35 years earlier when I worked at Xerox Corporation. His name is Dean Jim Hammerly. And so I contacted him. I showed up at an event. And the event was basically a business trade show and expo that's held at campus when we're not in COVID-19 condition. And I'm walking across the promenade, and he sees me, and I guess I still look the same as 3 decades ago. And he smiled and greeted me, and we did a little bear hug, and then the relationship sparked again. So lo and behold, about 3 weeks later, he sends me an email and asks me, hey, if you've got any spare time, would you be interested in doing some teaching here at the university? And I said, sure, why not? I had no idea what I was volunteering for at the time. And so that's how my engagement began with COBA, which is the College of Business Administration, and the University of San Marcos, Cal State San Marcos. It really has been a great experience for me, working, learning, and continuing primarily to do what I've always done, even before I started working in a corporate environment. And that was the spirit of making an impact, making a difference, and trying to create impressions and hopefully favorable ones with the people that I coached and mentored. So that's how I got to the university. And what I do there is I currently run basically three programs with a great faculty advisor and leader also, who manages the delivery primarily of the community-facing programs that we offer through the university. So we have basically 3 programs that we offer through the university. One is called Senior Experience, and it's basically an undergraduate level capstone course that is usually done and reserved for MBA programs. We engage all of the skills, knowledge, and experiences of the students to work on real live issues, real live problems for real businesses to help them find solutions, usually in the span of about 12 to 13 weeks, which is the span of a semester. So we have 2 of those programs that run both in the fall and the spring semesters. And I wish I would have known about it when I was working in a corporate setting, because I would have had multiple teams going on at one time, because you're getting a great research team, usually teams of about 5 people, 750 hours of horsepower working on your business problem to give you a finished product 13 weeks later. And normally, when I ask people, I said, what do you think that would cost you in the commercial marketplace? Well, that's usually about a $15,000 to $25,000 project. It's not what universities charge. I mean, we do that project for $1,500. and we do it at the rate of about 120 projects a year. Now, you've got to fit inside of the availability of the students, which is why it's on a semester basis. I mean, the students have to be available to do that, and they are required to take that course called Senior Experience in order to graduate. So we always have a fresh amount of about 500 plus students a year needing to take that as a requirement. Then we migrate to our more experienced people. So we have 2 programs in our MBA program that usually run about 25 projects during the June through August timeframe. So in a 90-day timeframe, we have MBAs working on projects at a much deeper level on behalf of clients, agencies, both government and private. So for example, we do economic impact studies. We just completed a study for a fire department in Bonsall, and it is a very impressive project. And so what would be the economic impact? What would be the significance of a report like that to a public agency? Well, revenue stream. How do you replace the infrastructure if we don't even know how to present it to the taxpayers, to the tax base? So we helped them develop a plan, a strategy, did all of that in about under 100 days. Awesome project, great job. And now we're working on a cannabis project for another sponsor who wants us to do that. That's the second project we've done in a year in that industry because it is growing. It's a growth-oriented kind of an industry. And we continue to do a lot of work in that. So those are the programs that we do, the senior experience, the master's experience with 2 different groups of MBA students. And then the third and the last project team that we have is called OBRA, the Office of Business Research and Analysis. That is a team of, again, students that generally do economic impact studies for industries. For example, we are currently working with a number of organizations. The city of San Marcos has asked us to do some research and some analysis for them because we have the capability of doing it. The software, for those of you who have never done it, is very expensive unless you are in the business of doing economic impact studies. There is no ROI. There's just outflow. Yeah. Because you don't get it back. You don't do it often enough. So we're in the business of doing that, and we work with BDCs in the area, and it is an awesome opportunity that I get to share with the business community. So I am community facing. I do a lot of work in the community, talk to a lot of people, probably speak to as many Rotaries as will have me, as well as chambers of commerce and a number of associations in San Diego County. So that explains my journey to the university, Ryan.
Great. Well, thank you for that. I know there'll be questions. If anyone has questions, you're welcome to use the chat box. I'll work them in, and then we'll have time for live questions from Miguel at the end. Miguel, are these programs, and for anyone not familiar with the Cal State system, are they unique to Cal State San Marcos, or are they spread across every Cal State university in the state?
Yeah, well, I'm going to obviously tell you that we're a unicorn because in my mind we are. I am not aware of any other university campus in the system of 29 that does what we do. Now, that doesn't mean, of course, that I've done any research. All I know is that nobody talks to me from anywhere in California of anyone else doing what we do. I am aware years ago that San Diego State had a number of programs that similarly did what we do, with one exception. We took it down to the undergraduate level through senior experience. They have not done that, to the best of my knowledge. And I also don't know that they've got existing live programs to do it. But I am aware that San Diego State at one point offered similar opportunities. I just think, like I mentioned earlier, Ryan, had I known of the capabilities that were here in San Diego that I could access as a Fortune 100 type of leader, I would have done multiple projects many times rather than having to delay decisions because I didn't have data, because I didn't have information, which included expansion, which included launching new products, which included analysis of the competitive landscape. I mean, there's a lot of things that we as business owners sometimes have to decide on the fly because we don't have the data, right? And we hope we're making the best decision. But with the capabilities that we offer, there's no reason why in 90 days we can't complete a project for anybody.
Love it. You talked about your Fortune 100 experience, and in our past guests, we've always asked questions around the journey, because so many people find themselves in a totally different place than they ever thought or dreamed that they would end up. And it always fascinates me how people overcome those obstacles or work their way through life and find themselves in the spot that you're in. I'm going to ask specifically about transition from corporate to educator. And those are really two very, very different things. And was that decision hard for you? And if so, why? And if not, how has that transition been? Because it's just a totally, it's like two completely opposing ends of the sandbox that you're playing in now.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. And for me, it's a simple transition because I look at both environments, higher education and a corporate for-profit environment, as similarly structured. They're both organizations. They both have rules. They both have regulations. They all have processes. They all have a hierarchy in both organizations. And the good news is I get to be as entrepreneurial as I was in a corporate setting in higher education. True, there are different rules. And true, I probably am breaking the rules as I did in corporate, in higher education, or at least I'm pushing the envelope. But it's been a learning experience, certainly for me to understand a number of elements that I totally didn't understand in higher education. First of all, in higher education, there is no real, there's a hierarchy, but professors are it's a different branch. I mean, the professor teaching group is like different. I remember the dean gave me some feedback one time because I was on a call with a professor and the chair of the department, and we're having a conversation. And once that conversation wrapped up, I did a quick debrief with the dean, and I used the term, well, this professor reports to this chair, right? See, I was using a corporate hierarchy, and that doesn't exist at all. Professors don't report to the chair. I mean, there's no hierarchy. They're like independent contractors, right? So I didn't know that. And so I laughed and chuckled and I said, oh, so I made that was a mistake because I said it out loud. And so I've had to learn the nuances of higher education, the terminology, how things get done at a university level. And certain things just get done sometimes based on limited information. Let me give you an example. So we just already a month ago now, 3 weeks ago now, decided, I didn't decide, CSU decided that spring is going to start remote. Now that's an interesting decision to make that far in advance, but it's probably a safe one, right? I mean, nobody's got a crystal ball. We can't predict what's going to happen. We don't know when things are going to be released. We have no idea what's going to happen with supply chain for therapeutics or the vaccine or anything else. So everybody's just guessing. Was that a safe decision? I'd say probably at this point. And the decision was we are going to start the spring semester remotely. Doesn't say we're going to finish there, but we're going to start. So I think that was a wise call to allay fears of everyone about, virtual, are we closed? Are we open? How's that going to work out? Well, we've already got that figured out, at least in the UC system.
That's very interesting. I'm super interested. I know our guests will be in being in a spot where you get to both educate, you get to mentor, and you get to engage with the community at large, right? You get this really unique perspective. And you see the talent of what's coming through the system and coming into the world, and you see the needs of the community at the same time. And I can imagine that would be really rewarding. When you think about some of the students that you are mentoring, right, and that you're working with, what's some of the advice you give them as you reflect on your career path and the changes and the movements, and what are some things that you can pass on to them that also would pass on to our audience? You're telling them now what to expect and how to advance forward in the world. You and I were talking about this a little bit before we started today. Share with us some of that advice that you're giving them and what they should expect as they go out into the world.
Absolutely. So one of the most successful programs that we have at Cal State University San Marcos, College of Business Administration, which is headed up by Jill Lang, who we spoke about earlier.
Yep.
So she heads up the program, the Business 300 program. So those are just letters that mean nothing. It is the content, it is the curriculum that's contained in there that really every student in every university in the country that hasn't been exposed to it should be. So how would you like to learn as a student in your sophomore, junior, senior year, how to write a resume, what it looks like, what kinds of words are contained? How would you like to learn about mock interviews and actually go through that process where you're being interviewed by an executive? So Jill has built up a team of about 35 to 36 executives in residence who are all very successful retired executives. Some of them not so much retired yet, but a number of them are retired, right? And so they donate their time and they work as coaches in this program with students. And they go through 13 weeks of training on things like I mentioned, mock interviews, how to write a resume, how about to actually interview, right? And get feedback. And also how to script, how to write. So that program deals at so many levels with the students that is awesome. The first is mindset. So the faculty teaches them some things about thinking that they haven't thought about. The second part of it is developing some skills, and the skills get developed around interview skill sets. How do you interview? How do you respond to a resume? What does the cover letter look like? How often should I hound the prospective employer to at least grant me an interview? How do I do that? What if I get rejected? I mean, we take them through the whole process, and they are coached and counseled over the course of a semester, 13 weeks, by someone who's been there, done that, worn that t-shirt, probably is very accustomed to signing the front of the check, not the back of the check. So anybody who's an entrepreneur and a business owner knows what I just said. So we weave those experiences at the student level. And I'll tell you, I just wish I never had that when I went to school, all right? I mean, it cost me a lot of errors and omissions and setbacks. But that is a spectacularly awesome program. I rave about it. Now, I happen to be also an executive in residence, so I volunteer my time doing it. But we've got 38 of those, 36 or 38, depends on the semester, right? But that is an awesome program, Ryan. And that's how we're unique. You know, in today's environment, I think, and the business owners on this call understand that, you have to be the unicorn. You have to be unique. You cannot have sameness. And even in these difficult times where certain industries are falling back, some are trying to survive. And I just heard a statistic this morning that roughly 40% of all restaurants nationwide will not be reopening, which is a scary thought, all right? What do you do in those environments? Well, you gotta learn how to be nimble. You gotta transition quickly. You gotta speak to people that are smarter than you are. So here's the thing that entrepreneurs, perhaps some of them on this call probably figured out. You cannot be the smartest one in the room. If you are the smartest person in the room of the group that you're attending, you need to find another group, all right? Because you can't be the smartest guy. If you are, there are elements that you're missing in your personal growth and development, not to mention strategy development and feedback. And I'm not saying you separate yourself or divorce yourself from that group. Just find another group. Build on it, all right? So I share that with you because that's what we try to explain to students. Students at this point of their careers, which is just before they graduate, have been accustomed in many cases to not be creative thinkers. They're not forced into the decisions that we make in the real world, right? So you can have the best plan in the world, but if something falls out, something happens like COVID-19, you know that business plan you wrote in January? Kill it, update it. It doesn't work anymore. So you have to be nimble. So your resources that you can tap into, your directory of friends who hopefully are smarter than you are, become very essential part of personal growth and business development. You just cannot be self-contained. You know, that notion that that when we grow up, before we go on to the real world, that post students, you know, says that you know, you got to pull yourself up by the bootstraps all by yourself. No, that's wrong-headed. You can't do it all yourself. And I'm sure your listeners probably will understand that and probably shaking their head and nodding in agreement. You just can't.
Absolutely.
You can't have all that knowledge.
No, I love that. There, I kept writing down some of those phrases. You cannot have sameness. You build a directory of resources. Don't be the smartest one in the room. I mean, such great stuff that I can apply for me as well. Thank you for that. I'm sure the students are grateful, I hope, for that advice and use it. And to that, and again, this is we're with Miguel de Jesus from Cal State San Marcos. If anyone has questions, feel free to chat them in, and I'll work them in, and there'll be live questions at the end. But in dealing with those students, their reward is so different than the reward in corporate America, right? And I'm not going to take you to the corporate America side because we're here where we are. But talk to us about the personal sense of reward and satisfaction you get from being in the role you're in now.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. And one of your guests here knows that I also volunteer in an organization called honor.org. So I serve active duty military who are transitioning from active duty to civilian workforce. And in the 5 years I've been doing it, I've coached through the process directly about 5 Navy SEALs, 4 Marine Raiders, 1 Delta Force, and couple of regular Navy transitioning from what they were doing serving our country to what they are going to do in the commercial space. So why does that appeal to me so much? And I do that pro bono. Well, because it's a duty, it's an obligation, it's not work. I've got certain skills, I've been blessed with certain approaches, I've learned a lot in my career. You know, they say that, you know, you can't take wisdom with you, so share it. They say that about money too, right? You can't take it all with you, so use it, invest it, make it good, make it do more, make it multiply and generate. So a lot of my perspectives and feelings start at an early age. I mean, I grew up in New York City, the inner city of New York, in public housing. For those of you who don't know what that is, those are big red buildings on the East River, from about 135th Street all the way down to South Street, on the Battery. And they're all low-income people. Now, I never felt, I mean, I didn't feel privileged, but I didn't feel poor, you know, but we lived below the poverty line. So, you know, I learned a lot of things growing up. I didn't realize I was poor until I graduated from high school. And then I said, oh, look at that, and look at this. And in Manhattan, you can walk down Madison Avenue and see a lot of wealth, a lot of stuff. But that wasn't my interest. I was spared from, so I was considered living in a community that was called high risk. So a high risk community back those days are people who are going to potentially wind up in the system. And by the system, it's not the good system, it's the bad system. And many people wound up that way. Many people would wind up in court and a whole bunch of other things. And back in those days, Ryan, you were given 2 options if you went to court and you saw the judge. One option was you can go to jail. The other option was you can go into the military. So that was the early 1960s recruiting methodology for the military. So I've had family that served, hence from that position comes my need to want to give back and serve. So I've had, you know, people who served in the Corps, Army, Navy, and Vietnam. And the way we treated our service people, Vietnam era was just wrong, in my opinion. But that was the nature of the times. And so if I accelerate my path forward, I went to work for my first company, Xerox Corporation, for 20 years and served in a variety of locations. Got hired in New York City, worked in the Caribbean for 8 years, then moved to upstate New York, headquarters for a couple of years until I discovered my next assignment, which turned out to be the West Coast. And I've served in both sales management, operations management in the course of my time with Xerox Corporation. And then Xerox Corporation asked me to move one time too many. And my children were in high school. And so I asked my children, what should we do? Should we move? And they, you know what high school students say, right? No,
Yes.
of course not. You're good. You're good at what you do. Go find another job, right?
Yep.
So I didn't need, they didn't need to push me hard, all right? Because I was on the fence, and then I got feedback, and so I decided to leave and went from back then an $18 billion company to a $40 million company, and that $40 million company was headquartered, oddly enough, in the same Rochester, New York City, and it was a small startup company called Paychex back in the day. So I joined Paychex in 1989, which was about a $40 million company. And by the time I retired, it was about 2.1 billion. And so I was able to play in another playpen without relocating from San Diego. So that's a bit about my corporate experience, how I volunteer. I'm a Rotarian, have been a Rotarian with one of your guests, Larry, and enjoy working with Rotary and the people. And then I've discovered my next love and my next passion. I'm actually doing what I had done for 40 years in a corporate environment, which is to grow things and people. And the only difference now, I'm doing it in higher education at a distinctly lower rate of pay. Let's not confuse. You don't get rich working in higher education unless you're the president of a university, maybe. Does that help? Right.
It does. Has it been rewarding being in the higher education area?
You know what? It's all very fulfilling for me to sprinkle a lot of wisdom and knowledge, some strategy, techniques, approaches to a budding flower that doesn't even yet know what they don't know is very rewarding to me. I get extreme pleasure to see that growth. I am extraordinarily satisfied to see when somebody finally lands a job where they're not accepting a position, they actually love what they do.
That's
and
great.
So whether it's working for a corp or it's being an entrepreneur, again, we can all benefit from some help from time to time. And to the degree that, see, I'm doing exactly what I love to do, and that's to help people.
Yes.
No different than I did in corporate. The only difference is we use different terms, different products, different services, right? Different industry, but people are people. And if you treat them correctly with respect and guidance, one of the things that I coach the students with, I actually am Gallup Strength certified. So I'm a Gallup Strength certified coach. The issues that people have is they adopt certain labels or behaviors because they haven't been properly modeled to them. I mean, how do you learn how to be successful? Well, you better fail a lot more times and do it quickly. Fail forward fast. And hopefully don't lose too much money, right? Hence my position about surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you are. You've got to be open to that kind of feedback. You got to be open to saying, I don't know. But you know what gets in the way of a lot of entrepreneurs, and I work with a lot of small business people and corporate level people. Their egos get in the way. It's like just say you don't know. Ask for help. But their egos won't allow them to do that until I work on them, on their emotional intelligence. So I teach emotional intelligence also. So the issue with their lack of emotional intelligence is they've never taken a profile, an assessment that can actually give them a plan of action to say, you know what, I have difficulty doing X. How can I improve in this area? It all starts with the assessment, Ryan. And once you get the assessment, you develop a plan, then you execute. And then once you execute, you better keep the doors open, right, to get feedback from people. And then act on that feedback.
Love it. No, that's so good. I mean, I don't know that I've heard fail forward fast. That's a cool thing that you know, you get the idea of advance and advance and know that you're going to get kicked aside. And we've asked several of our guests before is how do you have the stamina, the endurance, the strength to muscle through when you're facing your own
Yeah.
failure?
See, now I'm looking at Larry and smiling at Larry. So Larry doesn't understand what a no is, okay? You tell Larry no, he said, I'm sorry, I don't know. Did you just say something? It's like he blows you off totally. Larry, it's not like, so, you know, he's laughing because he knows it's true. So, you know, you can't let it get you down. Look, I don't win every presentation that I make, but
Yeah.
I've gotten at the point where I can narrow my losses, I can heal my wounds, answer the following question: what lesson was I supposed to learn from that interaction, right? And
Yes.
then correct and continue and go out and do it again. I mean, as a business owner, if you just lay down and die after you get your first objection, you know, you should never have started the business. There's going to be ups and downs. I tell my students, I said, look, you're going to be very disappointed in life because you're not going to get a yes to everything that you propose. And there are going to be times when people are going to, so here's a term in logic, all right, that I learned in logic. I tell my students, we didn't teach you a logic course, but you got to take one. So a number of people don't know how to argue their positions. And I don't mean argue meaning, you know, that kind of argue. I'm talking about articulate a position and defend it without getting mad, without, you know, saying, well, we're done, or this conversation's over. Well, you just can't do that in life, right? They're
Yes.
doing that in Congress right now. That's kind of stupid. So you know, you got to talk. You got to you figure it out. See, business people know that there's an end point, but the end point isn't with a no. It's how can we, right? The next iteration of no is, well, I understand how you feel about that, Larry, but if you were to do it, what would it look like? And then Larry's going to blow me off and he'll try to say, I don't want to talk about it anymore. And then I got to bring him back, reel him in, and say, okay, let's talk some more about it. All right. So again, you got to have what? Here's what I teach my students, Ryan. And these, I tell them this is a writer downer for it. So, you know, you got to have a wishbone in business. You got to have a wishbone, right? So normally for those people that don't eat turkey, I got to explain where that bone exists in a turkey, wishbone, or any kind of fowl, F-O-W-L, fowl. And so once I explain that, you got the wishbone. Then you got to develop a backbone. Uh-oh. Today's students don't necessarily know how to do that. No backbone, but they're teachable. If they're teachable and they respect you, they can learn how to do that. And then the last one is you got to have a funny bone. If you can't have a funny bone, man, life is kind of dull. You know, it's because people don't walk around saying yes, yes, yes to everything you ask for, everything you ask them to do. But if you develop a funny bone, you get over it. Like I said, Larry has been inoculated. He is immune. He doesn't understand. N-O, no, doesn't get it. Doesn't understand that.
That I've never heard that before. Develop a wishbone, or have a wishbone, develop a backbone, and then develop a funny bone.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. So good.
Thanks.
When I'm just almost speechless from that. I'm still trying to process that. You go through things with the students and you counsel them. In these times, suddenly what was an education platform and an ability to bring people and sit in a room and talk to them has now completely flipped. You know, and we are dealing with how do you train someone in this environment, and old methods don't work. And you talked about being nimble and agile a few minutes ago. How are you integrating and interacting with students now when you can't interact the way you did before? How are the students reacting? How are you reacting to that new, I don't want to call it even new normal, but just this new environment?
Yeah.
It's got to be stressful for everybody.
Yeah. Ryan, I think you're spot on. So on March 15th, we all got tossed into this COVID-19 environment when everything was shut down, right? So nobody was really well prepared for anything, right? So we've all had to learn new skills, whether you're in front of the room or even sitting on a Zoom call like this. You know, how do you know that the student doesn't put on an avatar and they're not really taking a nap. How do you know that? Well, and there's no way of us knowing how long the avatar was up, right? Right now, I can only see 5, 6 of you across. All right, I can probably do a gallery screenshot, which I just did, right? So in my classroom, I got a whole bunch of people here that went dark. So I have no idea where they are. They could be my students, right? And they could be snoozing, they could be doing stuff, etc. So we have learned to be nimble as profs, right? So what do? We inject slowly little exercises, maybe every 20 minutes. Like we may generate a poll. So I could poll 9 people right now to answer a poll for me. The absence of 100% response would say somebody went to sleep, somebody didn't respond, and they think they're getting away with it, but they're not, all right? So we've developed little tools to keep people engaged because you don't know. How do you keep them engaged, right? The other thing that I do, there's a couple of tools out there. So I like a little tool called Kahoot, K-A-H-O-O-T, which some of you may be exposed to. And that enables the instructor to develop little games, usually with some content involved, all right? And we play games because students like to play games. And there's always one of them wants to be a winner. And so we play games, we'll take a 10-minute break. I'll do a Kahoot. And whoop-de-doo, somebody gets a prize. So we've had to become creative in the use of our tools, and we've also had to be creative in learning the tools that were always available, but we never used, like whiteboard. So Zoom has a capability of whiteboard. So we can activate it, we can do whiteboard, and then I can use my, move around and draw. Now, I'm a lousy drawer. But I can make my point and teach using that as a modality. I'm terrible at sick people, but it works. It keeps the students engaged. And then of course you can't go an hour and 50 minutes, which is the length of a class. You got to put in a break, right? Yeah. I sometimes talk too much and I go past my first hour and I apologize to the students, the ones that didn't blow me off already because they went dark, right? Or showed me again, you don't know when they leave, right? And they're gone. It'll show up again when they test and they don't like their grades, but that's how we get back at them. Does that make sense, Ryan? We got to develop new tools. No, you got to be good. Nimble. You got to stay with the students.
Yeah. And Miguel, that doesn't really stop and end with students. I think incorporating elements of that into what we're doing in business, there's a real Zoom fatigue because sometimes you don't even know if the people on the other end of the call have been on. This is their 7th meeting today on Zoom. Mark, you and I talked about this a couple weeks last week, where it's just, man, you're just burning meeting to meeting to meeting, and that's exhausting at times. So those are some really cool tips.
Ryan, that's why you got to build in break time for yourself. Yep. Yeah. Yep. If you're participating in a group, I don't know why you would schedule yourself if you can control it for 3 one-hour meetings back to back. Why would you do that?
Yeah, no, totally, agreed. This is Real Talk with Ryan. Miguel De Jesus has been our guest today. Miguel, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being on. I have one more question, and then we'll stop the recording and open up for live questions. And you talked about all these great programs that are gems for businesses in the community and really for the students, and both the community can utilize and use the expertise and skill of those students, but also the students have an opportunity to learn from these businesses. How does somebody contact you or learn about what these programs are so they can plug in either as a mentor or as someone that utilizes a senior experience, or to help develop these students as they embark onto their professional career? How do they find that out and get in touch with everybody for that?
Absolutely. So I could always be the conduit of information flow to the various departments and people that we work with. Jill Lang runs the Student Success Program, JILLLAING, and I can put you in touch with her. Just send me a text or an email, and we can do that. People can contact me directly. My telephone number is 760-750-4266. and I'm generally available. I generally can get back within an hour because my meetings are only an hour apart. So I can respond to an inquiry. And then my email address, which I'll say on air, but I also gave it to you in writing, is mdejesus@csusm.edu. And I've got so much information that your membership can learn from, observe, and participate in. I mean, it is just like I said, I am stunned at how much information is so available to the business community in San Diego that they're just not tapping into.
Yes.
And I think it's just a lack of awareness. I don't think it's intentional. People just don't know. Number one, that it's available, and then number two, they don't know who to call. Right? You talk about a university. Well, you know, you go to a website, and which rabbit hole are you going to go under, and how long is it going to take you to get to a no or get to a yes? And so it's difficult. I get that. And so if I can facilitate it in any way, I'm available to do that.
Love it. Miguel, thank you so much. You are a mentor and someone that so many in the community that have come out of Cal State look up to. And I know you continue to impact people in the positive way, and all of those in the community that are improved in their life because of you. Thank you on their behalf. And thank you for doing this today. We so appreciate it. Thank you very much, Miguel.
No, thank you for the invitation, and it's been great. And hopefully you guys have witnessed that I do have fun in what I do.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.